It's 1943. American bombers are flying missions over Europe, and a lot of them are coming back looking like Swiss cheese. The military wants to add armor, which is a sensible instinct. The problem is that armor is heavy. You can't bolt it onto the whole plane, or the plane stops being a plane. So you have to pick. So they do what any reasonable engineer would do. They line up the returning bombers, they count every bullet hole, and they make a beautiful chart. The wings are full of holes. The fuselage is peppered. The tail section is absolutely shredded. The engines are almost untouched. The conclusion writes itself. Armor the wings, the fuselage, and the tail, because that's where the planes are getting shot. There's just one problem with this conclusion, and it's the kind of problem that sounds like a riddle until you see it. Then it sounds like a horror story. Enter Abraham Wald, Hungarian mathematician working at Columbia's Statistical Research Group, brought in to help the Air Force think more clearly. He looks at the same chart everyone else is looking at and he says, "No, you've got it backwards. Armor, the engines." You can imagine how this lands in a room full of generals. They have data, they have holes, they have a chart that everyone agrees on. And this academic is calmly telling them to armor the exact part of the plane that has no bullet holes in it. But here is what Wald saw. The chart wasn't showing him where planes get hit, it was showing him where planes get hit and still make it home. The planes that didn't come back got hit somewhere fatal. Nobody could line those up on the tarmac. And the part of the plane that looks oddly clean on the chart, the engines, that's exactly the part where a hit means you don't come back to be counted. The data wasn't lying because anyone lied to it. The data was lying because it had quietly filtered itself and nobody noticed. Let's draw this out. Say 100 planes flew the mission, 60 came home, 40 did not. The chart only has data on those 60. Now, where did the 40 get shot? Probably all over, just like the 60. But those 40 took a hit somewhere that mattered. An engine, a fuel line, the pilot, they went down. They never made it onto the clipboard. So when you stare at the surviving planes, what you are actually looking at is a map of places you can take a bullet and still fly home. The empty spots on that map are not safe. The empty spots are the places where, if you got hit, you didn't make it back to be in the picture. This is survivorship bias. The dataset you can study is the dataset that survived to be studied, and survival is a filter. Whatever the filter cared about is invisible to you, because everything that failed it is gone. It's the kind of mistake that feels impossible to make, right up until you notice you've been making it your entire adult life. Survivorship bias is not a World War II curiosity. It is everywhere, and once you see the shape of it, you start finding it in places that should embarrass us. Take startup advice. There's an entire genre of book that interviews founders of billion-dollar companies and asks them, what did you do that made you successful? Drop out of college, move fast and break things, trust your gut, sleep 4 hours a night. The advice sounds compelling because the people giving it are extremely rich. But for every founder who dropped out and got rich, there are 1,000 who dropped out and now work at Subway. Nobody interviews them. There is no best-selling business book titled How I Lost Everything by Trusting My Gut, because that author is too busy not having a book deal. Same with the famous successful people wake up at 5 a.m. statistic. Maybe they do. But a lot of unsuccessful people also wake up at 5 a.m. because that's when their second job starts. The 5 a.m. club isn't a productivity hack. It's a sample of people who already had their lives together and then attributed their success to whichever habit they happen to have. Or take the fitness influencer who insists their morning routine, their stack of supplements, and their cold plunge are the reason they look the way they look. Maybe. Or maybe 10,000 other people are doing the exact same routine right now, and nobody's interviewing the ones who still look like me. The ones with the abs got the algorithm. The rest are background. Same trick, same century, different uniform. Here's a sneakier one, because this one actually costs people money. Imagine you want to know which mutual funds are good. So you pull up a list of every fund that has existed for the last 20 years, and you look at the average return. It looks great. The market is easy apparently. You should obviously be investing. Except, what about the funds that existed 20 years ago and don't exist anymore? The ones that lost too much money and got quietly shut down. The ones the fund company doesn't talk about at the holiday party. They are not on your list because they died. The fund company removed them, the data providers stopped tracking them, and the survivors get to look fantastic by comparison. This is called survivorship bias in fund returns, and studies estimate it inflates the apparent average return by something like 1 to 2% a year, which doesn't sound like much until you compound it over a lifetime and realize you've been pricing in returns that no actual human ever earned. The graveyard is doing the heavy lifting, and you are not allowed to look in it. The same trick hides in plainer places. People love to say they don't build them like they used to. Look at all these gorgeous old buildings still standing after 200 years. Meanwhile, the modern stuff falls apart in 30. Maybe. But also, every flimsy building from 1700 has been demolished, collapsed, or burned down by now. The only old buildings you ever see are the ones that were good enough to make it here. The bad ones don't get to be in your sample because they're a parking lot. So, how do you avoid this? There's no clean trick. You can't run statistics on data you don't have, but you can build a habit, and the habit is one question. Ask who is missing from this picture. When someone shows you a chart, ask what would have to be true for something to not show up here. When someone gives you advice from their personal experience, ask who tried this exact thing and failed. When you read a list of best anything, ask what got cut from the list before I saw it. The annoying part is that you'll rarely get a satisfying answer. The missing data is missing on purpose or missing by accident, but either way, it isn't coming back. The best you can do is keep a constant, low-grade suspicion of any conclusion drawn from a population that filtered itself. This is also, by the way, why so much pop science crumbles. When you look at it twice, the studies that get published are the ones that found something. The ones that found nothing sit in a drawer. The ones that found the wrong thing get retracted and forgotten. The signal you are reading is what survived 3 layers of filtering, none of which had your understanding in mind. So, next time you're about to take advice from a billionaire or a 5 a.m. person or a chart with a suspiciously clear conclusion, picture the bombers, picture the engines, and ask yourself what got shot down before the data ever reached you. Wald's planes ended up with armor on the engines, and a lot of pilots came home who otherwise would not have. He probably saved more lives than most generals by doing nothing more than refusing to trust a chart that everyone else found obvious. That's another page from the digital grimoire. If you found this useful, hit that like button, subscribe for more videos where we find out your tools are way weirder than you thought, and drop a comment with the best example of survivorship bias you've ever fallen for. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.